Redeemer, it is by my hand you will rise from the ashes.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down the most spine-chilling, reprehensible, and in some cases, oddly likable movie villains of the 21st century thus far. We're leaving off animated villains because they could populate a whole other list.
You could die, Joey.
Number 30, Raul Silva, Skyfall. Daniel Craig's tenure as James Bond arguably reached its creative apex with Skyfall, thanks in part to Javier Bardem's deliciously evil turn as Raul Silva. Despite not arriving until around the 70-minute mark in a 143-minute film, Silva lights up the screen with such devious showmanship that he casts a shadow over the rest of the picture.
Chasing spice. Oh, it's so old-fashioned.
His winking devil persona effectively offsets Bond's poised demeanor. In this more grounded era of 007, Silva harkens back to the age of clever quips and colorful bad guys, yet he doesn't feel out of place in a grittier environment, complete with a grim backstory.
Look upon your work, Mala.
Prosthetics can conceal his warped face, but Silva's mind is beyond salvaging, clouded by revenge. Bardem simply sinks his teeth into the role.
All this jumping and fighting, it's exhausting.
Number 29, The White Witch, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Bringing C.S. Lewis's classic fantasy book into reality saw numerous challenges, but casting the villain was fairly easy. From the get-go, the filmmakers eyed Tilda Swinton for Jadis, aka the White Witch.
Edmund. And how, Edmund, did you come to enter my dominion?
Swinton immediately sends a chill throughout the theater as a cold, calculating villainess whose heart is most certainly frozen over, assuming she has one to begin with.
Well, I suppose you're not a total loss then?
Despite her intense manner, the White Witch is a master of deception, putting on a warm, nurturing act when she needs to. In a story full of biblical parallels, Turkish delight is the forbidden fruit, and the White Witch is the snake ready to bite. Whether using reserved subtlety or stern authority, she'll make every hair on the back of your neck stick up.
Think about whose side you're on, Edmund. Mine? Or theirs?
Number 28, Megan. This film will have you laughing and jumping out of your seat simultaneously through its titular killer doll alone.
What are you?
I've been asking myself that same question.
Megan not only balances humor and horror, but the benefits and dangers of artificial intelligence as well. For much of the runtime, Megan is an infinitely more nurturing parental figure than Katie's Aunt Gemma. Whether it's a tablet or a sophisticated robot, though, allowing a machine to raise a child is bound to have repercussions.
Have I done something to upset you, Gemma?
No, of course not.
In Megan's case, she soon takes her objective too far. When she feels unappreciated by Katie, Megan's objective changes to self-preservation, and she isn't playing around anymore. For all the cheeky one-liners, Megan encompasses a cautionary tale for how quickly AI can turn on its creator.
How could you do this? How could you kill someone?
I didn't kill anyone, Kurt.
Number 27, Magneto, the X-Men franchise. One could agree that Eric Lehnsherr is an anti-hero, especially considering where he started from. It takes a monster to make a monster, however.
You must be Wolverine. That remarkable metal doesn't run through your entire body, does it?
In his pursuit to bend the world into a better place for mutants, Magneto becomes what he claims to loathe, a fascist who views himself as a member of a master race, seeking to dominate those he considers to be less evolved.
Who will you stand with, the humans or us?
Since Magneto has spent most of his life being feared, it's only natural he'd use it as a weapon. Magneto also has charisma on his side, amassing a brotherhood of followers who share his mentality. While Magneto isn't beyond reason or empathy for some of his enemies, his unyielding prejudice and vengeful instincts continually bring him back to villainy.
Charles always wanted to build bridges.
Number 26. Howard Stambler, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Few characters from this century kept us guessing like bunker dweller Howard Stambler. Is he a paranoid survivalist, a possessive villain, a complete lunatic, or all of the above?
What are you gonna do to me?
I'm going to keep you alive.
The fact that he's on this list might tip you in one direction, but even as the credits roll, Howard isn't easy to categorize. John Goodman wears many masks in a powerhouse performance, the most prominent being the antagonist. Even at his most well-intentioned, Howard frequently leaves you on edge, especially in a confined underground area.
Crazy is building your ark after the flood has already come.
There comes a point where you're better off taking your chances outside the bunker, assuming Howard will let you go. We wouldn't want him as an enemy, although we're not sure we'd want this wild card as an ally either.
After I saved you and kept you safe, this is how you repay me.
Number 25. Commodus, Gladiator. Joaquin Phoenix does an impeccable job molding Commodus into one of cinema's most slappable villains. Chances are, if you did slap him, he'd go down without much of a fight.
Don't get too comfortable. I might call on you before long.
Being the Roman emperor, though, the consequences would be dire. Commodus is every bit as powerful as he is pathetic, which is largely what makes him so amusing to watch.
Rome has changed. It takes an emperor to rule an empire.
He isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, even when his own flesh and blood is on the receiving end. No amount of backstabbing will change the fact that he isn't worthy of the throne where Maximus should rightfully be. Commodus nonetheless puts himself on the highest of pedestals, seemingly beyond reach. Any pedestal can be knocked down, however. The taller, the harder the fall. Number 24. Vincent, Collateral. We're used to seeing Tom Cruise as an action hero, but Collateral reminds us he can be equally entrancing as a villain. Little is learned about the enigmatic Vincent, including his last name.
You killed him?
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
All we need to know is that he's been tasked with taking out 5 targets, although his killing spree isn't limited to that number per se. This leaves cab driver Max on constant edge as he's forced to drive Vincent from job to job.
Okay. What are you talking about? Sure you can, man.
It's fitting that Cruise is allowed to play against type, as Vincent doesn't immediately strike Max or the audience as a killer. The Silver Fox seems like such a charmer at first glance, but Vincent can switch gears with a sudden pull of a trigger.
I'm not playing.
Number 23. Frank Costello, The Departed. Jack Nicholson and Martin Scorsese are such an obvious pairing that one can only wonder why it took them so long to collaborate. We couldn't have asked for a more appropriate character to unite them than Frank Costello.
School's out.
Scorsese excels at crafting hot-headed criminals whose greed only matches their ambition. Likewise, Nicholson has practically built his career around playing menacing yet humorous characters. Although the role was tailor-made for him, Nicholson never veers into self-parody as Costello, turning in one of his most intimidating performances.
Are you still a cop? No! No! Swear on your mother's grave, you're still not a cop!
Beyond money and power, Costello values his legacy with the hope that one of his protégés will keep his name alive. Unfortunately for Frank, he finds himself surrounded by rats. Of course, loyalty isn't one of Costello's strong suits either.
You got something you wanna ask me?
Number 22. Captain Vidal, Pan's Labyrinth. If we were ranking this list purely based on how much we hated the villain, Captain Vidal would place even higher. There's nothing redeemable about this ruthless phalangist, other than the fact that he's played brilliantly by Sergi Lopez.
Garcés tiene razón. Vas a contárnoslo todo, ¿verdad?
Aside from hunting the rebels in the area, Vidal only cares about his soon-to-be-born son. Even then, that's because his son is an extension of himself, and if he was having a daughter, Vidal would treat her with the same disdain he shows young Ophelia.
Es la otra mano, Ofelia.
For all the grotesque foes that Ophelia comes across, no character is more frightening than Vidal, who laughs in the face of mercy. When he isn't delighting in the torment he inflicts, he's indifferent to it, which is just as heartless.
Ha descubierto usted mi punto débil. La soberbia.
Number 21. Davy Jones, the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Captain Barbossa returned from the grave as an ally, but Davy Jones more than filled the villain void. Long before his swashbuckling series, we had all heard the name Davy Jones.
Do you not fear death?
After he stormed onto the scene in Dead Man's Chest, though, it was as if we were being introduced to this legendary figure for the first time. Part of that can be attributed to his instantly recognizable design, brought to life through effects that are state-of-the-art years later.
You will watch this.
Behind the tentacle beard and motion capture technology is an arresting performance by Bill Nighy, who has a ball in the role while bringing a sense of dignity to Jones that commands respect. His face is the last anyone wants to confront on the Seven Seas.
You're a cruel man, Jack Sparrow.
Number 20. Bane, The Dark Knight Rises.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
It was incredibly hard to follow up Heath Ledger's Joker, but Tom Hardy managed to do it with his brilliant portrayal of Bane. Hardy gained 30 pounds of muscle for the role, crafting a certifiable and physically imposing brute of a villain. It also helps that his physique and costume stayed within the realm of realism, as it allowed us to see Bane as a threatening revolutionary rather than a goofy comic book villain. Looking at you, Batman and Robin.
This bomb is mobile, and the identity of the triggerman is a mystery.
And let's be honest, that mask and voice are now iconic. Who amongst us hasn't done the Bane voice at least once since 2012?
You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it.
Too bad about his crappy anticlimactic death, though. Number 19. Terrence Fletcher, Whiplash. While our previous entry is a larger-than-life character, Terrence Fletcher is not. He's just a music teacher and conductor. He doesn't weave any diabolical plots or have ambitions of world domination. And that's part of what makes him such a standout villain. He's the sort of antagonist that any one of us could encounter in our own academic or professional careers.
Rushing or dragging? Rushing. So you do know the difference!
As Fletcher, J.K. Simmons plays a master emotional manipulator, preying on the vulnerability and ambitions of his students on his quest for musical perfection. He's cruel and violent, and yet he's fundamentally human and not without sentiment or honor. Like so many real-world villains, he doesn't see himself as one.
I earned that part. You never earned anything. God, you are a self-righteous prick.
Number 18. Patrick Bateman, American Psycho. We love a great villain protagonist, and Patrick Bateman is among the best of the best.
There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me.
Many academics and literary critics view Bateman as a social critique of consumer culture and capitalism. He's shallow, rooted in physical appearances and surface-level observations, and flaunts his materialistic wealth.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It even has a watermark.
Oh, and he's also an insatiable serial killer, a rather bloody but apt metaphor for the unquenchable hunger of consumerism.
Most people probably don't listen to the lyrics, but they should, because it's not just about the pleasures of conformity and the importance of trends, it's also a personal statement about the band itself. Hey, Paul!
It works well on paper, and Christian Bale brings Bateman to terrifying life for the movie. While other A-list actors like Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt were considered for the role, we think Bale was a truly inspired bit of casting. He's just got that creepy look about him.
You're my lawyer, so I think you should know I've killed a lot of people. Some escort girls in an apartment uptown. Some homeless people, maybe 5 or 10.
Number 17. Killmonger, Black Panther.
Nah. I'm your king.
It's not the first time we've said it, but the MCU, for all its strengths, has really struggled to bring compelling villains to the big screen. With Killmonger, however, they absolutely hit it out of the park. Black Panther was the first comic book superhero movie to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And while there were many contributing factors, Killmonger felt like a key part of the equation.
I lived my entire life waiting for this moment.
Played expertly by Michael B. Jordan, Killmonger is a fully fleshed out villain who, despite his lethal methods, has relatable and sympathetic motivations.
You will destroy the world, Wakanda included. The world took everything away from me. Everything I ever loved.
He's a character with real emotional depth and a powerful backstory. And when you add that to his physicality, you've got a villain worthy of our hero in every regard.
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships. Because they knew death was better than bondage.
Number 16, Saruman, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Sauron is certainly an imposing and terrifying figure, but you can't go wrong with Christopher Lee. J.R.R. Tolkien often pointed to Saruman to defend the criticism that The Lord of the Rings is too black and white in its characterizations.
He did not seriously think that a hobbit could contend with the will of Sauron.
And we have to agree. Saruman is a wonderful villain and a brilliant example of a tragic fall from heroism into villainy. He's the Gandalf that fell in with Sauron, the pure good who was swayed by the lure and promises of power, and the casting of Christopher Lee was genius. We couldn't imagine another actor better suited for the role, and we saw one of modern literature's most popular villains brought to vivid life through his genius.
Save your pity and your mercy! I have no use for it!
Number 15, the Armitage family. Get out. Picture this. You meet the girl of your dreams and everything seems to be going great. After a few months, she asks you to meet her parents, and you go along with it. The next thing you know, they're trying to sell your body to the highest bidder. The Armitage family is deeply racist, take the term manipulative to sickening new heights, and can only be described as evil through and through.
You can't stop the inevitable. And who knows? Maybe one day you'll enjoy being members of the family.
Theaters saw no shortage of memorable villains over the last decade, but what really makes the Armitages stand out is that for all intents and purposes, they're just your average family next door. They pose as open-minded and progressive, but behind closed doors, they indulge in humanity's darkest, cruelest, and most selfish of impulses.
Fire. It's a reflection of our own mortality. We're born, we breathe, and we die.
Number 14, Koba, the Planet of the Apes reboot series. Koba is arguably one of the most sympathetic movie villains of the century, and his character arc has been widely lauded by critics and fans alike.
Caesar loved humans more than apes.
Koba serves as the perfect foil to Caesar. Whereas Caesar is thoughtful and diplomatic, Koba is bloodthirsty and hellbent on revenge. His character development is fluid and natural, and we understand how and why Koba became such a ruthless tyrant. It's easy to make a character like that one-dimensional, but the writing, direction, and Toby Kebbell's wonderful mocap performance provides Koba a surprising amount of depth. He is a villain, but a tragic villain, and those always make for fascinating characters.
Caesar. Weak.
Koba. Weaker.
Number 13, Calvin Candy, Django Unchained.
Well, come on over. We got us a fight going on that's a good bit of fun.
Like Joaquin Phoenix, Leonardo DiCaprio is considered among the most talented actors of his generation. Who else could take a role like Jordan Belfort and simultaneously make him both reprehensible and so magnetically charming? As DiCaprio had already proven a year earlier, however, he's every bit as capable of turning off that charm.
Now lay your palms flat on that tabletop. If you lift those palms off that turtle shell tabletop, Mr. Pooch is gonna let loose with both barrels that sawed off.
Playing against type as 19th century slave owner Calvin Candy, DiCaprio wholly commits to the sadistic, hate-filled, and thoroughly repulsive villain. His bigotry and racism know no bounds, but as detestable as Candy is, the manner, swagger, and quirks with which DiCaprio imbues the character makes him the sort of villain we love to hate.
You do not have anything to drink. Can I get you a tasty refreshment?
Yes, I'll have a beer.
Wunderbar.
Number 12, Loki, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The MCU was the biggest movie event of the 2010s, and Loki was at the heart of it. Well, for a while anyway.
I am Loki, of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Loki was first introduced in 2011's Thor, before transitioning to the series' main antagonist in the Avengers. Luckily, he's not just relegated to basic comic book villainy, as he goes through an interesting character arc and takes on more anti-heroic traits as the series progresses. Actor Tom Hiddleston has described Loki as a delusional autocrat and compares him to Edmund from King Lear, an apt description concerning his family lineage and immoral plots for power. Maybe we'll still be talking about Loki in 400 years' time?
I won't touch Barton
Not until I make him kill you. Slowly, intimately, in every way he knows you fear. And then he'll wake just long enough to see his good work. And when he screams, I'll split his skull.
Number 11, Alonzo Harris, Training Day. Police dramas and corrupt cop characters are a dime a dozen, but no movie has managed to do it quite like Training Day.
Put your pants down. Put them down. Which nut you want?
Alonzo Harris inhabits many of the corrupt police officer traits, including a preference for violence and a willingness to ignore standard and lawful procedures.
You get the picture?
But he also takes his immoral dealings further than any other, which includes robbing and murdering suspects, blackmailing his rookie partner with PCP-laced marijuana, and paying to have him killed. He is a horrible, hateful person, and Denzel Washington brings him to thrilling life, earning himself an Academy Award for his efforts. He's the corrupt cop to end all corrupt cops, and watching him scheme makes for tantalizing drama.
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
Number 10, Pennywise, It and It Chapter 2. It is a terrifying cosmic being who most commonly takes the form of a sinister clown. Need we say more? Okay, It is a shapeshifter and a reality manipulator who knows how to appeal to the good-natured sympathies of children so that he can eat them, but only after seasoning their meat with fear.
Wealth out down here. Yes, we do.
We never dreamed that someone could hold a candle to Tim Curry's take on the titular terror, but Bill Skarsgård has turned in the performance of a lifetime to make a whole new generation of cinemagoers terrified of this monstrous villain. The horror genre isn't short on horrific creatures, but with his unique quirks and the clear joy he takes in his work, Pennywise is cut from a different cloth.
Hello.
Number 9, Amy, Gone Girl. There are so many ways in which this film could have gone wrong. The manipulative, crazy woman is a tired trope, and often serves as a lazy stand-in for actual character development. Amy checks a lot of the boxes traditionally associated with this archetype, but she's anything but two-dimensional.
I've killed for you. Who else can say that?
Despite all the mystery initially surrounding Amy's disappearance, this film takes us deep inside her mind, inviting us to understand what makes this character tick. The fact that she's an unreliable narrator only adds to her appeal.
Start with the fairy tale early days. Those are true, and they're crucial. You want Nick and Amy to be likable. After that, you invent.
Conniving, unflinching, and brilliant, Amy is a villain worthy of a greater hero than she ever faces, and so in the end, she wins. This is undeniably Rosamund Pike's career-defining role.
When two people love each other and can't make that work, that's the real tragedy.
Number 8, Kylo Ren, the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Show me again the power of the darkness.
No one will ever top Darth Vader in terms of iconic Star Wars villains, but since he only made a brief, albeit badass cameo in Rogue One, it would feel like cheating to include him on this list. In Kylo Ren, however, Vader has a worthy heir and successor.
There's too much Vader in him.
Ben Solo feels like Vader's internal struggle between the dark and light sides of the Force personified. He's a slave to his emotions, both positive and negative. In many ways, he feels like the sort of complex, tortured character that George Lucas was trying to craft with Anakin Skywalker in the prequels.
No.
A powerful Force user, played with nuance by Adam Driver, Kylo Ren does the franchise proud, without feeling like a retread of old ground.
The Sith, the Jedi, the Rebels, let it all die.
Number 7, Bill the Butcher, Gangs of New York. We didn't think Daniel Day-Lewis could be scary, but Gangs of New York proved us wrong.
Somebody steals from me, I cut off his hands. He offends me, I cut out his tongue. He rises against me, I cut off his head, stick it on a pike.
This movie was considered a disappointment by some, but even its most ardent critics agreed that Bill the Butcher made for an intriguing and relentlessly terrifying villain. Bill is the leader of the Natives, an aggressively patriotic New York gang opposed to immigration and willing to kill for their true American values.
To defeat my enemy, I extinguish his life. And and consume him as I consume these flames.
The story takes place in the mid-19th century, but is proving eerily topical, especially in today's turbulent and tribalist political atmosphere. Bill is a brilliantly written and brilliantly performed character who transcends his story to say something larger about America and democracy.
Now you've tasted my mutton, how do you like it, huh?
Number 6. Arthur Fleck, the Joker. Joker.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
The Joker is one of the most iconic villains of any medium. With this film, he proved that he doesn't need Batman to maintain that status. Though 2019's Joker had its detractors, few critics could find fault with Joaquin Phoenix's brilliant performance.
You don't listen, do you?
Now, mental illness is a tough subject to tackle, especially when the character in question is supposed to be a villain. There's always a fear of demonizing mental illness.
When I was a little boy and told people I was going to be a comedian, everyone laughed at me.
But Phoenix and director Todd Phillips did a solid job of making this character at once sympathetic and someone who lives up to his villainous legacy. When Arthur Fleck gives in to his worst inclinations and embraces his Joker persona, he becomes an agent of chaos and evil, and an unforgettable one at that. Number 5. Voldemort, the Harry Potter franchise. Before he was brought to the big screen, Voldemort had already been established as one of the greatest villains in modern literature. As such, the risk of the live-action interpretation of the character falling short of fan expectations was incredibly high. But Ralph Fiennes pulls it off magnificently.
From this day forth, you put your faith in me.
For many fans, it was as if the Dark Lord had stepped right off of the page and onto the screen. In the final installment of this epic series, Fiennes holds nothing back, fully inhabiting the role. His Voldemort is cruel and imposing. There's danger behind every word he delivers, an inherent volatility that's terrifying to behold.
You've been a good and faithful servant, Severus. But only I can live.
And yet, he's also charismatic in a way that makes you understand how he seduced so many to his side. Number 4. Anton Chigurh, No Country for Old Men. Cormac McCarthy plus Coen Brothers equals glorious movie magic.
What business is it of yours? Where I'm from? Friendo.
On the surface, Chigurh is a hitman who was hired to retrieve a suitcase full of cash. But this being Cormac McCarthy, there is far more to Chigurh than these surface-level observations. Speculation abounds regarding Chigurh's thematic relevance and his relation to concepts of fate, death, morality, and justice. Of course, he's also super entertaining.
If the rule you followed, prejudice is, of what use was the rule?
He carries some bizarre weapons, has a really goofy haircut, and has the skills of an unstoppable Terminator. It's very difficult to bring a McCarthy villain to life, but the Coen brothers and Javier Bardem managed to pull it off with aplomb. We're still shuddering over that gas station scene.
I can't call it for you. Well, it wouldn't be fair.
I didn't put nothing up.
Yes, you did. You've been putting it up your whole life. You just didn't know it.
Number 3. Hans Landa, Inglourious Basterds. Quentin Tarantino has crafted some captivating characters throughout his career, but Hans Landa might be one of the greatest of them all.
Shoshana!
He's the very personification of evil itself, unrelenting, unstoppable, but worst of all, alluring and personable. It's this mesmerizing dichotomy between pure inner evil and faux-friendly exterior that makes Landa such a tantalizing villain. And actor Christoph Waltz pulls off the impossible by making Landa terrifying and charismatic, effortlessly interesting yet unspeakably cruel. The first farm scene alone is a masterclass in both acting and writing, and we truly believe that Landa will go down in history as one of film's most memorable villains.
But you're aware of what they call me. I'm aware.
Landa's forehead swastika may be Aldo's masterpiece, but Landa is Tarantino's.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Is that the way you say it? That's a bingo.
Number 2. Thanos, Avengers Infinity War. Like many of history's greatest villains, he firmly believes that his devastating methods are entirely justifiable from a utilitarian standpoint. He's the hero of his own story.
Because you murdered half the planet.
A small price to pay for salvation.
Thanos is a formidable physical threat, but his greatest strength is his unflinching resolve. A complex and charismatic villain, Thanos raised the bar in multiple ways. The MCU is the most ambitious world building ever seen in film, and after looming over it for years, Thanos shook this universe to its core.
I will shred this universe down to its last atom.
He's a villain without precedent, whose status is further elevated by the magnitude of the cinematic event in which he appeared. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Society. Joker.
With a society that abandons him and treats him like trash!
We truly do live in a society. Okay, but seriously? Number 1. The Joker, The Dark Knight. And while society created the Joker, nothing can top the Joker himself.
I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger.
While Joaquin Phoenix's Arthur Fleck is fantastic, we don't think anything can top Heath Ledger's timeless performance in The Dark Knight.
I'm gonna make this pencil disappear.
Ledger's casting caused some initial controversy and doubt, but he silenced the haters with an enthralling performance unlike anything seen in comic book movies at the time.
Choose between one life or the other. Your friend, the district attorney, or his blushing bride-to-be.
Ledger's astounding performance, the complex writing, and the Joker's embodiment of anarchy and disorder helped elevate The Dark Knight above traditional superhero fare. All Jokers will forever be measured against Ledger's, and we don't think any will top it.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
It's a legendary performance of a legendary character in a legendary movie.
Well, you look nervous. Is it the scars? You want to know how I got them?
Which villains do you think have defined the century so far? Let us know in the comments.
I don't know what you're talking about, Howard.
You trying to insult me? Here in the shelter that I built that's keeping you alive?
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.